Hello, good evening. Another beautiful Sunday is here. Welcome to Iron Port here on Metropolitan Television. Iron Port is proudly brought to you by the Ghana Revenue Authority, GOIL PLC, Serene Insurance, Ghana Link Network Services, and indeed Meridian Port Services, MPS. The show is proudly powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, GPHA. And our media partner is the Business and Financial Times, the BNFT. And so if you want to have a grasp of all that transpired in the show tonight, make a date and grab the Thursday edition of the BNFT, and you'll be able to see all that happened here on the show tonight. We are streaming live on our social media pages. On Facebook, we are streaming live at Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Still on Facebook, we are live at Port of Tema. And on YouTube, we are streaming live at Iron Port. Along the line, we shall be getting interactive with you, and so all you have to do is send us your messages and comments via our dedicated WhatsApp line, which is 0559 019 177, 0559 019 177. At the appropriate time, when I pick signals from our production team that the time is ripe, we shall activate the phone lines for you to call in and contribute to the discussion. My name is Kennedy Mona. We are going for a quick break. When we bounce back, we'll continue with the show. Please do stay with us.
Every now and again, GOIL makes good things happen. This time, GOIL has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. GOIL Super XP Ron 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. GOIL Super XP Ron 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. GOIL Super XP Ron 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with GOIL Super XP Ron 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. GOIL has that sorted. GOIL, good energy.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Impressive factory. If only I had listened to you, I wouldn't have been in this mess. That devastating fire virtually wiped out the whole factory and my warehouse.
Remember my misfortunes last year? Serene Insurance Asset All Risk Fire policy that I took were there to pay for my damaged stocks in the warehouse, and my machines that were affected by the floods have been replaced. My accident vehicle is back on the road thanks to Serene Insurance motor policy. Currently, my goods are on the high seas covered with their marine cargo insurance policy. I was just telling Ajima about Serene Insurance.
Oh, Ajima,
tell him more.
As a road contractor, I make sure I do my contractors all risk insurance for the projects and then workers' compensation for all the workers on site. With Serene Insurance, they will make sure they will cover your unknown tomorrow today.
Serene Insurance, a new face of insurance. Call us now.
MPS Terminal 3 is Africa's new state-of-the-art container terminal at Tema Port. For manufacturers, agro-processors and traders, the new port means business can be done faster. This infrastructure boost will improve Ghana's port handling capacity, connect more trading routes, and oil the engine of growth for the economy, creating greater opportunities across all sectors as Africa's markets merge and become the largest trading bloc globally. MPS, we connect, you thrive.
All right, so welcome back. We are now going to take a look at happenings in the port and shipping industry in the course of the week. And in the course of the week, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority had cause to join the Ghana Navy in the Obangame Express 2023. We'll tell you what it's all about. Plus the fact that the Japanese private sector, people were in Ghana and they paid a working visit to the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. They want to explore opportunities here in this country. Let's take a look at these stories and more.
The Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority continues to demonstrate its commitment to international exercises intended to create an environmentally safe and secure marine environment. This commitment has once again been demonstrated in the authority's participation in the 2023 edition of Obangame Express, a multinational maritime exercise in the Gulf of Guinea between January and February. The recent exercise saw GPHA's Marine Operations Unit liaise with the Ghana Navy in an oil spill response drill.
The Ghana Navy was in there to assist to cordon off the place to prevent the inflow of traffic around the particular area. And therefore the place was cordoned off, and then we deployed the booms. The booms, as it were, are designed to contain the spreading. Then they started with the skimmers to take in all the water and the oil that had settled at the surface of the water into the holding tank of the tugs. And then after that, we use the dispersant, which is a requirement, of course, with permission from the environmental agency. And then we did the needed mopping up. So this was to see our response time, our communication capabilities or limitations, if any. So in general, it was quite successful, and it was done contained within the stipulated time as is required.
The Obangame Express focuses on increased regional cooperation in maritime safety and security. This year's edition was designed to involve stakeholders in Ghana's maritime industry to ensure interoperability between maritime partners and cooperation at sea. It can be recalled that last year, GPHA participated in a similar drill under the Obangame Express project. A delegation from the Japanese private sector has paid a working visit to the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority as part of a wider program to understand Ghana's trade and investment climate and explore potential collaborations. The Japanese, who visited under the auspices of the Japan External Trade Organization, were made up of members of Japan's automobile, manufacturing, pharmaceutical, finance and insurance industries, among others.
Automotive companies and any other related company which is diverse into the chemicals, glass, steel and whatever. But for them, the logistics is a very important factor. So the port and road, or say overall transport infrastructure is one of the biggest point of concern.
They were accompanied by officials from the Ghana Free Zones Authority and the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, who are critical institutions so far as trade and investments in Ghana are concerned. The delegation was introduced to the services rendered at the ports of Ghana, with particular emphasis placed on developmental projects that are positioning the ports as the leading trade and logistics hub of West and Central Africa.
If you choose Ghana as a place where you would like to do business, you have access to greater markets beyond Ghana. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger are accessed through Ghana. And since Ghana has one advantage of being very peaceful, we have terminals and facilities that we have dedicated for these three countries. And so when you bring your cargo, we can consolidate, or the cargo is taken through these terminals and then transported to these landlocked countries.
With reference to the supply chain aspect and where the ports play a very prominent role in that, in terms of trade facilitation, yes, Tema is a place to work out that magic.
The Japanese delegation were informed about the benefits of using Ghana's free zones for business.
You can take land and as Japanese companies, you can set up your companies there and it can be designated as a free zone area. Or you can go into manufacturing, that is, you have your company and you manufacture products for export. Or you can go into services, mostly IT services, as well. That's allowed under the free zones. Or you can be a commercial company. In this case, you have to bring in the goods in bulk, and you break the bulk in Ghana and probably export to the other African countries.
All right, so those were happenings in the port and shipping industry in the course of the week. We're now going to the global stage to see what is happening there in the industry.
Evergreen's giant 24,000 TEU container ship, Obangame, transited the Suez Canal on Friday, 3rd of February, while underway on its maiden voyage from Malaysia to the Netherlands. The ship is the newest addition to Evergreen's A-type vessel series and can carry over 24,000 containers. The head of the Suez Canal Authority, Lieutenant General Osama Rabi, said that the successful transit of the ship proves the readiness of the Suez Canal to handle current and future generations of large ships. The authority said that its development strategy involves direct communication with shipping lines and shipyards to exchange information and ensure future ships are able to navigate the canal safely. Obangame was delivered in December 2022 by its builder, Hundong Zhonghua Shipbuilding, 4 months ahead of schedule. Operations at the port of Iskenderun have ground to a halt following the deadly earthquake that rocked Turkey and Syria on the morning of Monday, February 6. The port has been subject to significant damage in the earthquake that measured 7.8 in magnitude on the Richter scale, leading to a full stoppage of operations. In addition, roads have also been heavily affected, further impacting the movement of cargo. Industry major Maersk said that, as a result, the company would have to reroute its ships to nearby ports that are up and running. The company noted that all booking cancellations, amendments, and changes of destination will be free of charge for Iskenderun and Mersin bookings throughout the month of February.
All right, so those were happenings in the port and shipping industry on the international stage. It's now time for us to take the word or phrase of the day. And today's word or phrase of the day is bollard pool. Bollard.
Bollard pool is the pulling power of a vessel, particularly relevant to anchor handling tug vessels and anchor handling tug supply vessels.
All right, so welcome back. It's now time for us to zoom into our discussion proper tonight. And tonight we're taking a look at how to harness the potential of the blue economy for economic development. And so we have in our studios one of the godfathers of this industry, Dr. Emmanuel Kofimbia, who is a maritime law consultant. He is a private legal practitioner with Alliance Partners, and he's also a former chief executive of the Ghana Shippers Authority. He's with us in the studios. Let's say good evening, Doc, and welcome, sir.
Good evening, Ken.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, and good to see you.
You're glowing, looking very young.
Thank you very much.
How many years after retirement?
It's God's grace, 6 years now.
6 years after retirement. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Slowly counting.
You are indeed blessed. Yes, sir. All right. So before we zoom into our discussion proper tonight, which has to do with harnessing the potential of the blue economy for economic development, I just wanted to. I know you have an upcoming event in Somalia.
Yeah.
You know, those days when you mentioned Somalia, I mean, it sends shivers down the spine of people because, yes, of the, piracy and other illegal attacks and all that. Tell us what this whole thing is about.
Yes, thank you very much. As a consultant for the International Maritime Organization, we've been working on trying to get developing economies to bring their maritime legislation up to speed.
Right.
Most of the developing economies have ratified various international conventions and instruments, but they don't have the capacity to be able to transpose those conventions into domestic law in order to make them applicable. It is important that you make them applicable in your national jurisdiction so that you can then enforce the provisions. The International Maritime Organization conventions are not self-executing. That is to say, by themselves, they do not become law, especially in common law jurisdictions. and therefore you need to transpose them or domesticate them into national legislation, and that is what we're doing for a number of African countries, and we'll be doing in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and in Somalia.
Okay. Yeah. And when is it supposed to take place?
On the 26th of February.
February, okay, just this month.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I think that recently one word that has come into our maritime lexicon is the word blue economy. When somebody says the blue economy, what does it mean? What does it stand for?
Sometimes when you are given two words like that, you try and look. Blue is a color blue.
Yes.
And then economy is about wealth.
Absolutely, yes.
Simply put, the blue economy is the utilization of the seas and oceans and its resources, sustainably for the benefit of humankind. Simply put, but when we talk about the blue economy, sometimes it can be a little misleading, because we are looking at the oceans, we are looking at the seas, and it's important to look at, if you like, the genesis of the terminology.
Right.
The terminology itself was coined by one Gunter Pauli. He was given some work to do by the United Nations, and then he came out with the terminology, the blue economy. What he had in mind at that time was more of, if you like, the utilization of every resource on Earth.
Okay.
So his view was that within a decade, that is in 10 years, if you had 100 innovations, they were going to create 100 million jobs.
Okay.
Because for him, nothing should go waste.
Right.
As far as he was concerned, everything was recyclable. Everything could be reused. And that was the concept, because he was looking at climate change and the things that were affecting climate change. But in recent times, following Rio Plus 20, around 2012, in Rio in Brazil, the world turned its attention to the greens. Everybody was afraid of climate change and its impact, and consequently, we're looking at the greens, planting more trees, decarbonization, etc. And when this conference was held in Rio, the small island developing states, and some developing economies, especially the small island developing states, when they look around, they see more blue than they see green, because they are island states, And consequently, for them, there was something, therefore, to emphasize as far as the oceans were concerned, if we were thinking about climate change. So they were then looking at the sustainable use of the ocean's resources for alleviating poverty, and for mankind. And consequently, this was taken on by some coastal states as well. So if we take the African Union, for example, it has a strategy for dealing with the blue economy in terms of harnessing the resources of the oceans for the benefit of humankind. But all of this came from what Gunter Pauli has said with respect to a decade within which 100 innovations was going to produce 100 million jobs. So the production of jobs was also a factor in all of these. And the small and developing states and the coastal states were of the view that there is the need to emphasize this, because it looks like the developed economies had long ago realized the benefits of the seas, the potential of the seas, what it offered. Unfortunately, developing economies, small island states, had not, if you like, realized the great potential that the sea holds. For us, we take our canoe out there, we go to sea, we fish, and that is it. But there is enormous potential as far as the seas are concerned, and that indeed is why today you find that the term or the terminology blue economy is now in vogue. It is in vogue because of the importance of the oceans. I say that developed economies realized this long ago, because if you go back into history, in fact, During the Peloponnesian War, you know, the war, those days we had city-states, you know, Greece, Athens and Sparta.
Right.
You know, if you look at Themistocles, he mentioned that, look, he who controls the ocean controls the world.
Right.
You know, and if you come back even in recent history to Adam Smith in his Wealth of Nations, he also makes it clear that he who controls the seas controls the wealth of the world.
Okay.
It's true,
okay.
You know, so the seas cover about 70% of the Earth's surface.
Right.
So we on Earth, we are having 1/3.
Yes.
You know, so it's not for nothing that God created the seas 70% covering the Earth's surface. Yeah. It must tell us something. Yeah. You know, and consequently, as I said, the developed economies have seen this long ago. You know, the good book, the Bible, even says, they that go down with ships to the deep.
Yes.
They who work in great waters, they know the mighty works of the Lord.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
so indeed the ocean plays a very important part in our lives. It gives us, if you like, a lot of the oxygen that it takes in, some of the carbon dioxide. Yes. Almost about 50% of the carbon dioxide we breathe out is taken into the oceans. You know, it gives us our protein requirements. Absolutely. In fact, the FAO reckons that about 4.2 billion people, you know, get about 15% of their protein needs from fish. So you see how important it is for not only coastal states, but all states that depend on the seas, if you like, for their protein needs. Right. So indeed, the seas have a very important role to play, quite apart from the fact that they give us oxygen, they give us food. They also provide our wallet, you know, because it generates an economy on its own. Yeah. But we need to realize the potential, and then we'll be able to use it. So in simple terms, when we talk about the blue economy, we are talking about the harnessing of the resources of the ocean. Yeah. You know, and sometimes we feel restricted to looking at the sea itself, but we are talking more about the other ancillaries that relate to the sea. And I'm sure as we go on, we will delve deeper into that. So we see what benefits can be derived from the oceans. Right. But the blue economy simply is the sustainable use of the ocean and its resources for the benefit of humankind.
Awesome.
You know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So in your initial submission, I picked this small island states.
Yeah.
Just at a cursory glance, small island states. When you mentioned that, which countries really come to mind?
The countries that come to mind are countries like Barbados, you know, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, the Bahamas, you know, those ones. When you come to Africa, the Comoros, you know, Seychelles, etc. You know, the Maldives. They are small island states. When they look around them, they see more of sea than they see land. And therefore, there should be something in the sea for them. So how do they harness it in a sustainable way? And that then it's why we focus today on the blue economy.
I dare say that the blue economy has the capacity or ability to give some respite, perhaps to countries that are reeling under serious economic hardship, and maybe developing countries in general. Yeah. If you come to our country, Ghana, we are working assiduously to achieve some consensus with the IMF for a bailout, sort of, you know, to inject some, you know, life into our economy and all that, if you agree with me.
Yeah.
I don't want to find out from you, is this what the blue economy has the potential to do for countries if we manage it properly?
You're right. You're right. Maybe. I mean, I don't have the figures. I don't have any statistics. But I believe that maybe if we had focused, you know, our minds on the potential of the blue economy and harness that potential, we will not be going to the IMF. Will not be, and I would explain. I mean, as we go on, and you will see that there is enormous potential.
Right.
I mean, look, it is estimated, you know, that the ocean and its resources is worth over $24 trillion. It's worth over $24 trillion. The ocean and its resources. Yes. You get me? If you take the United States of America, for example, in the year 2020, America had its GDP 1.7% from its ocean economy which amounts to over $360 billion. $360 billion. If you come to the European Union, about $500 billion for the European Union. Euros, 500 billion euros.
Yes.
That is the ocean economy. You get me? So that should tell you that for these people, they have realized long ago the potential that this holds. I mean, if you look at, before we started, you showed Evergreen,
yes.
Carrying 24,000 TEUs of containers.
Yes.
To have a ship in a place that will displace a certain amount of water cannot be anywhere than in the oceans.
Absolutely.
You get me? So when we talk about the potential of the oceans, we are not looking at it in the narrow sense of what do we get from the oceans. No. But you are looking at it because the ocean exists. What can I create? So someone knows that I can build a ship that can carry 24,000 TEUs. Building that ship is an economy.
Absolutely.
It's an economy. There is no doubt about
24,000 containers.
24,000 TEUs. And if you take Asia, they control about 70% of the production of our ships. So they build 70% of the ships that come out there. Why would not their economies grow? But it's all related to the oceans. So when we talk about the blue economy, we don't look at it in the narrow sense of the word. We look at it in the broader sense in terms of the complementarities, in terms of the synergies that it will help to create.
All right, so can we zoom into the key areas that we can look at in terms of our economy, that can be harnessed, for the good of this country.
Maybe if we use Tema.
Yes.
Tema, it can give us a sense of what the blue economy does.
That's okay.
I'm sure with the creation of the port of Tema, we also created the fishing harbor.
We have some videos. As and when you want us to call for them, you can call for them, yes.
I'm sure we'll talk about that when we get to how do we plan.
Okay.
What does government put in place?
Great, sure.
What is our current situation?
Absolutely.
How do we change from that?
Absolutely.
To realize this potential I'm talking about.
Great. Okay.
So it's important to bear that in mind. So it is important to mention that when we are looking at the potential, we are looking in terms of maybe one major thing like the port of Tema. And out of the port of Tema, you are where you create maybe the shipping harbor, you create the shipyard and dry dock, the cocoa processing factory, Valco, other industries, all of them that then relate to the port. In fact, it is that combination of things which benefits one from the other that I refer to as the blue cluster. The blue cluster. So I use the terminology, the blue cluster approach, to relate to using the sea as a fulcrum and therefore as a center point.
Right.
And with that center point, you generate an economy around various things.
Right.
I've used Tema as an example.
Right.
For example, if we take our Atuabo, you get me? If we develop Atuabo, what do we intend it to be? Is it only a gas plant and that is all? But there are other complementarities that can come from Atuabo.
Right.
And therefore, our thinking, our perception should not be limited only to Atuabo. But then, what other industries can flow from there and benefit from the gas resources that you are tapping from the sea? If we are taking upstream oil.
Yes.
To what extent do we break it down to maybe midstream and downstream? Because until you do that, then the benefits that are derivable from the blue economy are not derived.
Yes.
You get me? So it's important for you, even at the stage of planning, to know that, yes, I'm going to take my oil and gas resources from the seabed, but even as I take my oil and gas resources, what other things do I put in place such that I can realize the potential of the blue economy?
Right.
It's very important. So you are taking oil and gas, but that is not the end.
Right.
Once you get the oil and gas, you move from upstream to midstream to downstream. And then you see what industries can relate to this. And consequently, all of this have synergies which they create for the benefit of the oil and gas industry. If you don't harness that potential and you take your oil from the belly of the sea and then you pump it into tanks and they drive it away, you are losing the potential that the blue economy generates. And that is key for us. And that is why I said we must be thinking beyond just harnessing the product, but what other complementarities, what other synergies does it give us, which we can draw from. And therefore, I have mentioned Atuabo, I have mentioned our oil and gas finds in the Jubilee fields. We are talking, say, about the Keita port. I mean, if Keita port should come on, should it just be a port? Because you must think beyond the port and see what are the other things that, because I have a port here, I can quickly develop along the line.
That's right.
And those are the things which are important in generating an economy within the blue economy.
When you come to our part of the world and in terms of development projects, everybody knows that when it comes to the maritime industry or the shipping space, projects are quite capital intensive.
Yes.
Now, one issue that stands out always as a challenge that everybody will tell you is the issue of financing, capital. How can great initiatives be supported financially using the blue economy?
Yes, and a number of these things I have spoken about, they are self-financing.
Right.
And therefore, if you generate an interest in it, if you create that which makes it possible to have, for example, a public-private partnership in which private capital is brought on board and government provides the environment, the wherewithal, then it is possible, as it were, to have these things done.
Right.
I can see, for example, I think they are showing some, if you take our coastline.
Yes.
If you take our coastline, we are talking about the Marine Drive, for example. I wonder whether we've done a proper costing of the Marine Drive, whether we have looked at the synergies to be drawn from the Marine Drive. Those things are critical that you need to look at. So anyone who is coming to invest in that area does not only look at that. I mean, I believe this is...
These are some of the videos they are showing.
Yeah, this must be the coastal area along the Kole Lagoon.
Okay, in Accra here, around the Jamestown.
Around Jamestown, from where the lighthouse is, all the way towards Kolebu, you know. And for the life of me, I just can't imagine that government after government, we have failed.
Okay, that's RMU.
This is the Tema side, eh?
Yes, I think so.
Right. Once again, you see, you can tell.
Area,
You know, let me just quickly touch on this. Because we have no marine spatial planning.
Yes.
We have only one coastline. We don't have two. When we talk about the sea coast, we have just one. You can't replicate it in Tamale. You can't replicate it in Bolga. You can't replicate it anywhere. Just one sea coast. That is what God has given to you. And therefore, you make the maximum use of it. All the developed economies, they have realized this. And therefore, they make maximum use of their coastal resources.
So I think that's the lighthouse.
So that's the lighthouse.
Yes.
And I'm sure if you see the entire coastline over there, for the life of me, I can't believe it. You know, I grew up as a small boy in Kolegono.
Yes.
And when I was growing up in Kolegono, they used a pontoon to cross over from where now is Kolebu and Kolegono.
Yes.
A pontoon crosses over to come to mainland Accra.
Right.
To come to mainland Accra. You can imagine, you know, the enormity of the waters. And you can tell the lagoon, you know, and people were fishing in the lagoon. This is something God has created for us. And if we want to glorify God, government should take this as very important. The whole stretch from the Kole Lagoon along the beach front where the Jamestown lighthouse is, all the way to Abosokai, is a stretch that holds great potential for this country. And if government were serious and revamped the whole area, I mean, I was in a place in Singapore called Clark Keys. I think it was originally something along these lines, but they have converted it, and it generates an economy on its own. And you can have boats on it, you can have real estate, you can have good property, all of these things, you know. So when I'm talking about, say, the Marine Drive, you're not talking only about Marine Drive, you're talking about the estates, you're talking about the ocean resources and the recreation that it brings. You know, so the tourism that you want, you get it there because you have created the facilities for it. So it is important that, I mean, I've seen government after government. I just don't know why a natural habitat like the lagoon will be killed. We are pouring garbage into a natural habitat and putting up buildings in a place that ordinarily should fetch us gold. It's worth more than gold. That stretch is worth more than gold. But go there.
That's the Poli Lagoon all the way through to
and have a look.
Yes, and that's when you're getting to ICGC.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and have a look at it. I mean, you would marvel because there is no way any developed economy would allow such prime place to go waste. No way.
So you can see
no
buildings littered all over
now
the place.
Springing up in the place, you know, where you have a lagoon. You know, you have a place that you can develop and have real estate, prime real estate in these areas, you know, and yet you can tell what we are doing in this place. You know, it's rather sad. It's rather sad that we are putting garbage into this place and putting up buildings that has nothing related to the habitat. You know, if you look at the filth there, you know, the flora, the fauna, anything that would grow in this is being killed. But this, I tell you, can transform Accra's economy. That place alone can transform
you say it has great potential. When I say great potential, can you expatiate on
yes, because you see, if you dredge all through the lagoon, it goes all the way to Circle. And we can put boats on this, and the boats will go and come. You build restaurants, you build hotels, you build recreational facilities all around this place. And then you would find out that there are synergies also to be built, because as you run the boats, there will be a need to do repairs. You have to create yards for them, and each of them a multiplicity of things. Ancillary services, therefore develop naturally. Ancillary services develop naturally out of this, because you must service that particular industry. So this is only one area that I have mentioned. You know, today, in developed economies, they are looking at tidal energy. They are looking at wave energy. They are looking at wind energy. We're talking renewables. The world is moving away from fossil fuels. The investment in fossil fuels is dropping. You know, so it is important that we look ahead. In looking ahead, we need to be training our people along these lines, so that we can tap energy from the sea, either through tidal, through wave, or through wind. You know, all of these we have the potential to do. So it is important to bear in mind that while you are talking about the fishery, you are talking about the ports, you are talking about the industrial developments around the ports, you are talking about the ocean energy, you are talking about recreation, you know, around, and therefore there are a number of things that you can create a cluster around these, and consequently you would develop, because the oceans are there. We don't know when the seas will dry up. You get me? We don't know when the seas will dry up. So their presence should enable us to harness its potential. All of these things I have mentioned, including our security itself, they are all dependent on these. Unfortunately, we have not put in place any definitive plan and policy to enable us tap the resources of the ocean. No.
So if I take a look at what you just described, I mean, having to dredge the area and put boats there, all the way through to Circle, put restaurants all over the place and to get people. It means that we're also even enhancing our tourism industry.
That is it. I mean, tourists will come ourselves. Over here, we'll have local tourism. People will go there, they would gather. We create a place that runs 24 hours.
Absolutely.
And people are going and coming, and that is it. We create an economy on its own. And when you want to book a hotel in that place, how expensive it will be because of the location, and it is important that governments look at these and then try as much as possible, look deep into the future, build institutional capacity, also have training, so that our youth can begin to look ahead, because we are far behind when it comes to these things. We are far behind.
Doc, would you say with the exploitation of the blue economy, resources of the blue economy, or the ocean, so to speak, does it take cognizance of issues or elements of conservation and sustainability? Because if we do not take time to perhaps structure it in such a way that we can repeatedly or consistently go back to it and get something from it, it means that we can deplete it and run short, and then it's like, that's it.
Very good question. Very good question, because at the heart of all of this is sustainability.
Right.
So that we don't just take the resources and they get finished.
Right.
As you said, deplete it. Let us take the fishery as a resource. We are fortunate fishery is a renewable resource.
Right.
So it can renew itself. But if you are not careful and you don't manage the exploitation of the fishery, the tendency is to kill that industry.
Right.
Presently, what kind of policies do we have, such as to preserve our fishery? To what extent do we monitor these things? So management and conservation for sustainability is at the heart of the blue economy, so that you harness and then take the resources in a sustainable way, which means that, let's use fishery as an example. You have to have total allowable catches. How much of fish can a boat go out there and catch? I don't know whether we are doing proper declarations of the fish that is landed. You need to have our mesh sizes, the nets. To what extent are we inspecting them? When we say people should not use small nets, are they complying? We are talking today about IUU, illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing. To what extent are we managing these? We all know about the Chinese bottom trawlers, we all know issues about pair trawling, light fishing, dynamite, etc., which are all deleterious, to the environment and to sustainability. In harnessing the potential of the blue economy, one key thing to bear in mind is you should do it having in mind management and conservation measures. So at every point in time, you should have a policy in place that underpins the exploitation of the resource. So I've used fishery as an example. If you take your oil and gas resources, you have to try and look at how do I take the oil and gas resources from the belly of the earth such that I would not pollute the marine environment. What measures do you put in place such that you will not pollute the marine environment? I was happy with what I saw, a drill on how to deal with marine spill, etc. So these are the things that you need to put in place. They should form part of your policy. And consequently, then you put in place a regulatory framework that would enable you ensure that you are indeed complying with the things that are in your policy. So sustainability is at the heart of this. It's at the heart of this.
Right.
You need to make sure you manage the resources well, you conserve the resources for the benefit of future generations.
Given what you have said so far, it does appear that yes, we are so rich, yet very poor. In the sense that if you go to the coastal areas, the folks living there are really some of the hardest hit in terms of poverty. I just want to find out from you how we can ensure that we alleviate poverty from these areas. We help the folks to actually benefit from the blue economy, from the resources of the ocean, which is so close to them anyway, but yet far away in the sense that they don't get to benefit directly from it.
Very true, very true. I mean, I'm sure if you were to look from Axim all the way to Aflau, I mean, I cannot single out one, if you like, rich, in quote, fishing community. You know, it's all because we haven't done proper planning.
Absolutely.
I mentioned earlier on, we have only one coastline. We don't have two coastlines as far as the sea is concerned. We may have a coastline on the lakes or whatever, but as far as the sea is concerned, it is imperative, therefore, that you have a marine spatial plan. You know, what we showed there, it tells you clearly that there is no spatial plan. You know, and therefore the development is haphazard. They are rearing pigs. There's a piggery over there. You know, I know some time ago they were moved to the abattoir. Along the motorway. Today there is an abattoir still there. You know, and so if you don't do proper marine spatial planning and consequently designate areas for particular activities, so that once you map them out, you can then have control over those places. And therefore put in place measures that will direct the activities of the folks at the shores. Training, if you take, if you like, the smoking of fish, you know, it's done very well along the coast. But when you see the surroundings, I'm sure when you see the fish outside, it is tantalizing. I mean, you want it.
But the conditions are
but I'm
not
sure
which
if
was
you
prepared,
go to the conditions where they are prepared. And so it is imperative that we put in place measures that then educate. And then we also provide microfinance to these people, show them ways by which they could do packaging. You know, a lot of these things can even go for export. Unfortunately, you know, we have not put in place these systems. And because the mechanisms are not in place, the systems are not in place, the structures are not in place, what therefore happens is that it's free for all. And everybody does what he wants. And that is why along all our beaches, you find out that there is poverty. But if you take goal 14 of the SDGs, you know, life under the oceans, you know, talking about harnessing the resources of the oceans, the key and central thing there is for it to help alleviate poverty. And therefore, if you should alleviate poverty in these areas, then you should begin something that is targeted, you know, to the folks over there by way of building their capacity, reformation over time. It cannot be achieved overnight. It cannot be done in 3 years, 5 years. But we have a long-term projection that, look, in 15 years, this is how we want the coastal area to look like. Because we have a plan, because we have a map, because we are putting in place the appropriate mechanisms to educate, to train, to transform, to get people to appreciate why they are there, and they themselves see the benefits they derive from it. And once we do that, we can alleviate poverty along the coast.
Dr. Emmanuel Kovimbia is a maritime consultant. He is also a private legal practitioner with Alliance Partners here in Accra, Ghana. And he's also a former CEO of the Ghana Shippers Authority. And tonight we are discussing harnessing the potential of the blue economy for economic development in our country. And you've heard him so far. Some of the things that he has outlined, very lucid, presentation out there, very lucid submissions. We will be taking your messages, like I said earlier from the beginning of the show. All you have to do is send us your messages via our dedicated WhatsApp line, which is 0559-019-177, 0559-019-177. The number is on your screen. Send your messages there. We have a few of them here already. I'll be sharing with them. We'll be sharing them with you, pretty shortly when we go for a break. But we are not going for the break yet. Doc, I just want to find out from you how we can get government's attention to the oceans and also to place emphasis, so to speak, on the numerous benefits that you have just outlined here. in your submissions. How do we get government's attention?
Maybe when IMF doesn't give us the money.
That's an expensive one.
that's on the lighter side.
I know, right?
But what I mean, sometimes, it looks like it's only when you are pushed against the wall,
yes.
That you realize that you should turn somewhere else,
yes.
And I am believing that it is time to turn towards the blue. It's time to turn towards the oceans. And the question you are asking is, how do we get government's attention?
Yes.
We get government's attention through Iron Port. You asked me to shed some light on the blue economy,
yes.
And I am doing that. I'm sure in various other fora it may come up. But the key thing is that government must have a policy directed at the oceans. And so with that policy, then comes a strategy. And then within that strategy, you put in place things that would enable you, as it were, achieve the objectives of the policy. So that is how we can get government's attention.
Yes.
Especially if you were to take the major ministerial portfolios that deal with this, from fisheries, to the environment, to energy. You realize that in doing this, I've mentioned a number of sectors.
Sectors, yeah, absolutely, yes.
From trade and industry, very good.
Yes.
So that alone should tell you the importance of the oceans in that respect. And therefore, government attention in this regard should be multi-sectoral, from transport to energy, to fishery, to agri, to tourism, all of
transport,
them, they all have a role to play. And so doing a number of these seminars, training, etc., and creating that awareness for people to see the potential.
Yes.
I told you earlier on, it will take a lot for you to say, oh, the sea is there, I can get fish from it. Yes. But you need to think more to get to know that I can place a 24,000 TEU ship in that ocean. Sure. And if I am to build a 24,000 TEU ship, yes. It will create employment for over 1,000 people. That kind of thinking is what we need to let government understand. I've talked about harnessing the energy potential of the oceans. How do we train people in order that they would do this? Instead of everybody going to do advertising, marketing. I'm not saying that they are bad, but it looks like everybody is going in that direction. But we need to look at some of these things, and it's important if indeed we must tap the potential of the blue economy.
All right. So let's take a look at the policies to regulate the blue economy, to regulate the sector. How far have we come in your assessment, as a country? And what more can be done?
Well, look, let me be blunt. We haven't come far at all. The whole of Africa. As I spoke, I gave you figures for Asia.
Exactly.
I gave you figures for the Americas.
Yes.
I gave you figures for the European Union.
Yes.
They know the strategy, they know the potential. They are able to tell you that in 2020 we made 1.5 trillion, out of our ocean economy. We still do not have the figures. Yeah. Even at the AU, we are only projecting and looking at 300 billion potential. Yeah. You get me? But how do we realize that 300 billion potential? And therefore, to now bring it down to country by country by country. So those are some of the key things that we need to be looking at. Because if you haven't done that, and you are not so sure, of what the potential is, then it means you'll be groping in the dark.
Absolutely.
And so when you mention what ought to be done, I have mentioned that it's important to create first awareness. Long ago, the developed economies, they realized the potential.
Right.
They knew that the sea was worth more than gold.
Yeah.
We haven't, and therefore it's important for us to now turn our attention to it. So creating awareness is critical. Once the awareness is created, we should try and build the institutional capacity that will go with it. I've talked about a multi-sectoral approach. At the same time, it is important that our curricula in the various institutions themselves are tailored towards realizing the potentials which the ocean brings. All of these are important if we should move away from the over-concentration on land, where now Galamsey is our thing and it's destroying our water bodies and all of that. We must turn our attention to the oceans.
Right, right. Okay, so I just want to, have your thoughts on green shipping and generally, and whether you think the transition from fossil fuels to green shipping is basically good for our region. I'm talking about Africa and our sub-region, our continent. And particularly now that we are beginning to consolidate the gains in the oil and gas, sector. I don't know what your thoughts are with respect to green shipping.
I must say that it's a very, very dicey one. We all appreciate the challenges of the green economy, and therefore the need for us to have green shipping. And consequently do decarbonization, cut down on CO2 emissions, which go into the atmosphere. But we need to bear in mind that while a group of countries are at this level, the other group of countries are at that level.
Very low.
And consequently, whenever we want to put in place measures, those measures should take cognizance of the weaknesses of those who are down there.
Right.
I mean, if you take countries like Venezuela, you take Nigeria, you take Angola, they are almost 90% of their budget is around the exploitation of oil and gas. We don't own our own ships, so we use the services of other ships.
Right.
When you want to have reduction in CO2 emissions, how quickly must you reach the targets? And if you take cognizance of all of these countries below, then you need to adjust, such that it takes notice of those who are down there.
Right.
We've been talking about market-based measures. Market-based measures to ensure that, yes, the technology will be there, the technology will be employed. Those who already have the technology, they are doing that. But then it leads to increase in prices, etc. And consequently, who should bear that?
Of course,
Our economies are reeling already, so we cannot bear this. So green shipping, fine. We all want green shipping, but we don't want the associated costs. As far as the market-based measures are concerned, to be foisted upon us immediately.
Yes.
We take cognizance, but then let us use an approach, that is differentiated.
Absolutely.
And therefore, we have a moratorium within which we can get to certain levels.
Wow. Wow. Okay. All right. So I think that we'll take. I have one question here that talks about. Okay, I've been told that we can go for a break now. So this is Iron Port here on Metropolitan Television, and we're discussing how to harness the potential of the blue economy for economic development. Guest in the studio is Dr. Emmanuel Kofimbia. He's a maritime consultant. He is a private legal practitioner with the Alliance Partners here in Accra, and he's also a former CEO of the Ghana Shippers Authority. We're going for a quick break. When we bounce back, we'll continue the show. Please do stay with us.
Every now and again, Goil makes good things happen. This time, Goil has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. Goil Super XP Ron 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. Goil Super XP Ron 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. Goil Super XP Ron 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with Goil Super XP Ron 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. Goil has that sorted. Goil, good energy.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Oga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Impressive factory. If only I had listened to you, I wouldn't have been in this mess. That devastating fire virtually wiped out the whole factory and my warehouse.
Remember my misfortunes last year? Serene Insurance Asset All Risk Fire policy that I took were there to pay for my damaged stocks in the warehouse. And my machines that were affected by the floods have been replaced. My accident vehicle is back on the road thanks to Serene Insurance motor policy. Currently, my goods are on the high seas, covered with their marine cargo insurance policy. I was just telling Ajima about Serene Insurance.
Oh, Ajima,
tell him more.
As a road contractor, I make sure I do my contractors all risk insurance for the projects and then workers' compensation for all the workers on site. With Serene Insurance, they will make sure they will cover your unknown tomorrow today.
Serene Insurance, a new face of insurance. Call us now.
MPS Terminal 3 is Africa's new state-of-the-art container terminal at Tema Port. For manufacturers, agro-processors and traders, the new port means business can be done faster. This infrastructure boost will improve Ghana's port handling capacity, connect more trading routes, and oil the engine of growth for the economy, creating greater opportunities across all sectors as Africa's markets merge and become the largest trading bloc globally. MPS, we connect, you thrive.
All right, so welcome back. Remember, I said tonight we are discussing how to harness the potential of the blue economy for economic development, and our guest in the studios is Dr. Emmanuel Kofimbia. He's a former CEO of the Ghana Shippers Authority. He's a maritime consultant and a private legal practitioner at Alliance Partners here in Accra, Ghana. We're taking some messages, and then I've also been told that we can activate the phone lines anyway. And so the number to dial is 020-552-8353, 020-552-8353. The number is showing on the screen. You can call and then contribute to the discussion. Now, this one says, hi, good evening. Thanks for such a nice program. My name is Robert, and I am really in support of what Doctor is saying. I have had this idea of utilizing those abundant recreational areas that can fetch the country some high amount of money, as well as reduce unemployment in the country. I hold MSc Construction Management, and I have interest in these projects. Now, please, can I have Doctor's number so that we can meet and have a discussion with this idea? Okay, that one, my producers in the background will sort you out, and it says, counting on your usual cooperation. This one is like a letter or an application. Thanks. It says Robert Kwansao Prim. I think that's the name. Robert Kwansao Prim, MSc Construction Management, BSc Quantity Surveying and Construction Economics, student member, Australia Institution of Quantity Surveyors, AIQS. Okay. This one says, good evening, my brother, the moderator. Thanks for the program. Kudos to my former lecturer, Dr. Kofimbia, Regional Maritime University. He has all it takes to shape and harness these resources. This afternoon, I was driving along the Sakumono Beach, and I was thinking, saying, can he put up a strategic plan to government for implementation or seeking foreign investors to invest in these? This one's from Paul Abaka, Live Shipping in Tema. Doc, would you want to respond?
Yes, thank you.
Particularly where he says whether you can put up a strategic plan for government.
Yeah, I'm aware that there is a national integrated maritime strategy, the NIMS, you know, yes. Which is coming out with something along the lines to ensure that we have marine spatial planning and the rest. So I'm sure government itself is aware and will take it up. Yes. But at any point in time, we all make a contribution towards it. Yeah.
Okay. This one says, my goodness, if your guest who is prominent cannot convince the government positively, how are we doing our politics here? This one's from Mary Botwe.
And that one I don't have an answer.
I know, right?
Okay. For the government, they make policy, they take decisions,
Right.
and therefore these things must be done at the highest level, first and foremost, because you want to focus on a particular area,
Absolutely.
and therefore it must come from the top, and consequently it will then trickle down. So it's important that government itself knows that, look, we are focusing on the oceans.
Absolutely.
What can we benefit from it? What do we have to put in place so that we can realize the benefits?
Okay. All right. My name is Atu. Honestly, I agree with Dr. Mbia. The whole beyond the return tourism agenda by government can be boosted by proper planning of our coastline. The parties and festivals are not enough. About time we create world-class tourism. You agree, Doc?
Very much. Very much. And it goes to show, I mean, if you look at the Sakumono Beach, the guy referred to, it means you are wasting the seafront.
Absolutely.
And I said there is only one seafront, one coastline. You get me? And therefore, if you put structures like that over there, you are wasting the resource completely. And that is why I agree with him that indeed we should go beyond the return and then the things we do.
The parties and the festivals.
I mean, look, we can make it mega.
Absolutely.
We can make it mega. And this issue about jobs, I'm telling you, this would absorb a lot as far as the problem with jobs is concerned.
Okay. The one says, I wasn't so clear on Doctor's point when it came to how we will fund these lofty projects. Can we particularly hear how we can? My name is Citizen Toby.
Yeah, I mentioned PPP.
Yes.
I said public-private partnership.
Yes.
I said you have to prepare your plan and then show that these are bankable. These are investments that will yield in the long run.
Right.
And that you shouldn't have a myopic or limited view of only the development along the ocean, but then look at also the ripple benefits that are likely to come out. And when you do a good paper, a good presentation on this with proper costing, looking in the long term, in terms of realizing the return, then you would realize that you will get investors to come aboard. Because that is one way by which you can get financing for these projects.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Do you think that it's possible for someone, for instance, Abaka, your former student, who just said he was thinking about it whilst driving along the Sakumono area and looked at the beach and thought that okay, and someone also said he also had interest in turning these recreational facilities into. I think it's just possible for somebody to perhaps who has the wherewithal financially to get up and say, okay, I have this plan. I want to identify the appropriate authority and take it there and see whether they will sanction it so that I can begin to do something as a private person. Or maybe, like you said, a public-private partnership kind of thing so that we can turn things around.
Yeah, I told you that, all of this must be done in an integrated approach so that you don't have the development in silos.
Right.
And if you want to do such an integrated thing, you don't want one person to come and say, I'll do one person this. But then you have an overarching plan. You have a marine spatial plan that tells what you want to do along the coast.
Absolutely.
And therefore, when people bring their things, it must fit into your plan. You get me? So then the ministries who are responsible for those particular things are those who then will be the drivers for it. Or if you yourself don't have a plan, and then one person comes and says, I will do this. Tomorrow, someone comes and says, I will do that. You realize that you will be having the developments, but the developments will be a hodgepodge approach instead of the integrated approach. And that is why you need to have a complete marine spatial plan. And once the plan is there, you know the various habitats, you know the flora, the fauna, you know places that you want to have as special protected areas. You know that, look, there are some migratory birds.
Right.
This is where they come to. You know the spawning areas of fishes, etc. So once you know all of that and have that information, then it helps you when someone comes to say, you can do this here, but you can't do this here, Michael. This other thing you can do here, but you can't do that over here. That's what I'm talking about. So it's important that you do that first. Then when individuals come with projects that are viable, you show them places where their projects can be placed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I just want to find out what your view about the Marine Drive concept is.
Yeah, it's a good idea, you know, but it takes a lot, you know. As I said, I haven't seen the project document on the Marine Drive in its entirety.
Right.
We've all driven around, we've seen posters, pictures, etc. I don't know whether that is what is intended that it will look like. But you have to realize that to be able to develop an ocean front like that, you also need enough land area abutting the coast, where you can have other developments that abut the coast. You know, so when you look at the Marine Drive, and you look at the area, and you have to come and look at the art center, the lotteries place, you know, the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum area, and the rest. And then you want to find out to what extent would you have backup area as far as the facilities on the coastline is concerned.
Yes.
You know, and that is important. So I haven't seen the project document, but I think that once we want to look at it in terms of synergies, what other things can develop along the line, then we don't have enough backup or lay down areas as far as the beachfront itself is concerned. Because we want to put up hotels and things which would overlook the beach, you get me? How much of space do you have between there and the coastline? All of these are things which you need to have in mind in order to have a proper marine drive. If you are doing a marine drive in which you would have maybe a dual carriageway going, or a tri-carriageway or a tri-carriageway going this way, you know, and then the beach is there. Beyond the tri-carriageways, you have your developments, which are the hotels, the restaurants, etc. So you need all of that, so that you don't just concentrate on the beachfront and then you think it is done. That kind of development has not been helpful.
Okay, so I know you have a fair idea when it comes to other African countries and how they manage their blue economies and all that. Is our situation peculiar, or you think it cuts across?
Yeah, it cuts across, but others have done much better in certain areas. You know, still, it's an African canker. But if you take South Africa, for example, you can see quite clearly that they have a plan. You get me? You can see clearly from the way they have developed. I have also had the opportunity to be in the Gambia, you know, and you see some development in that regard. You know, Cape Verde, you know, they are also organized in some way, you know, not the extent to which you would want it, but Cape Verde also has its marine front also well developed, you know, cut out. If you want to talk about maybe Maldives, the Seychelles, etc., you know, then a little, but generally for a number of African countries, you know, if you take Senegal, for example, you look at Dakar, there is a coastline. Along the coastline, you can see a long stretch where you have hotels, you have restaurants, nightclubs, etc., and the rest, you know. So while we have some of that, I don't think it measures up to the mega program that we need to have in Africa. And that is why the African Union is very much particular about harnessing the potential of the blue economy.
So when we talk about the Marine Special Plan, who should lead the charge? Bearing in mind, you mentioned the fact that this is
multi-sectoral.
Exactly.
Yes, I think maybe the Ministry of Transport, you know, working together with Ministry of Environment, working together with Agric, etc. But it doesn't really matter who leads it, for as long as all of the, you know, we have a National Planning Division,
National Development Planning
Commission, etc. NDPC. Yes. They could look at it and be maybe at the top, bringing together all the multi-sectoral agencies.
Yes.
Doesn't really matter as long as you bring the various agencies in place, so that you can have the synergies that will develop along the line.
Okay, so I think I noted this one down. I just wanted to find out from you. You mentioned South Africa, the Gambia, Cape Verde, and all that. And you mentioned the Senegal example where they have the coastline and then they have a stretch of hospitality industries like the hotels and all those things, you know, dotted around.
You've been around quite a lot. Can you tell me one place like that here where we have about a 3-kilometer or 4-kilometer stretch.
I can't mention one. I can't. I can't mention one. The only thing I see is on the Cape Coast stretch where you see people, drinking spots. What do we call it? Springing up all over the place on the Cape Coast Elmina stretch. When you take that road, yes, I mean, which is not the thing that
no, that's not what we're talking about.
Yes, exactly. So I just want to find out from you in South Africa what the example is, in Gambia what it is. You mentioned Senegal. I mean, if we can have those things and see where we fit in and how we can also.
I can only talk about South Africa,
yes.
And talk about a place like Durban.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, and then look at the port, and the fact that the creation of the port of Durban and what it has done with respect to other things to be benefited.
Okay.
So you find out that an industrial area abutting the port, you can find that there is when you go further, there is a beach area, where you have hotels, you have recreational areas, etc. So you can see that there is a plan behind this. That's the sort of thing I'm talking about. And that is why I say in most parts of Africa, at least where I have visited,
yes.
maybe apart from, I think Egypt too would be an example. Egypt, and then I think to some extent Morocco. Egypt also has places where they are developed, like that. Apart from the Nile River itself,
yes.
they have used it very, very well in that regard. Gambia, they have done well as far as the coastline is concerned, and also the concentration of things there. Consequently, getting the ripple benefits I've been referring to.
Right.
So Gambia will have it. You have the coaches, coming in, the hotels there, the people who would deal with it. Unfortunately, a lot of the things that also we can benefit from are not created by us.
Right.
So it leads to a lot of importation. And I'm sure maybe over time, import substitution would work, and then gradually we will begin to create some of the things that generate the real benefits.
Right.
I talked about shipbuilding as an example.
Yes.
So
where the Asians have taken charge
have captured it.
like 70%.
So if you have our shipyard here,
yes.
Building the boats for our fishery,
yes,
and not some Chinese rickety boats that come here and then we are forced to certify them for them to go to sea. So it's important. Once you do that, then you realize that the benefits that you derive from building the fishing vessels are such that it's a multiplier.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm referring to. Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me take your views about the cruise industry in Ghana. What do you think about it, and how can we improve or even bring about it in our country, in our waters?
Yeah. While I was in the International Maritime Organization, I worked with the international cruise industry.
Okay.
I had some engagements with them when they wanted some legislation, to be passed. And quite clearly, I mean, we are not ready. We are not ready. We are not ready in Africa generally. Let me say West Africa.
Right.
We are not ready. So. I know once in a while one cruise ship will come to the port, but that is not the sort of business we are talking about.
Sure.
We are talking about a regular flow of cruise ships people coming off the cruise ships and having something to do. You get me? So they have places they can visit, and then the cruise ship can move, say, from Tema port to Takrady port and go maybe to Axim, go to places where people can get down, do some tourist or have tourist attractions, come back on board, leave, go to Togo, and then go to Benin, and then go. Unfortunately, we are not developed along that line.
Yes.
And that is also a very, very big potential that we have, the cruise industry.
Yes.
It's a very big potential.
Absolutely.
I don't know how we are going to harness it because it takes a lot of resources.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure once our ports turn their attention to it and begin to develop facilities for it. I mean, if you go to Barcelona, you realize the cruise industry is a driver of the Barcelona economy. So it is so important that we focus on the oceans, try to look at what is in there, and then consequently begin to develop it.
Okay, I think that we're wrapping up pretty shortly, but I just want to find out from you. I recall some time ago, there was this MV Adobia that came. That was a feeder vessel.
Yeah.
And I think that they didn't see the light of day. After a short span of operations, it's sublimed. I just want to find out from you your thoughts about feeder vessels and issues of interconnectivity in terms of, transporting cargo.
Yes, normally shipping economists will tell you there are things that are demand-driven, and there are other things that are supply-driven.
Yes.
And sometimes, while you may look at the market, let me digress a little and use maybe Accra, Kumasi, aviation.
Yes.
Yes. Remember, there was nothing like that at all.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
then eventually it came to me because the service was put in place.
Absolutely.
People found it was efficient.
Yeah, sure.
People began to then use it.
Yes.
They realized they can dash quickly. People can go to Tamale and come back.
Even now, it goes to Y every day. There's a daily flight to Y.
People can come and do that. So sometimes these things are supply driven.
Yeah.
So put it out there and then see how well it will work.
Yeah.
MV Adobia had its own challenges. My very good friend Stanley, I know it had its own challenges. When you want to put a feeder vessel on these routes, it's important that you find something that is convenient for the trade. I think he was doing Tema, Takrade most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah, sure.
The whole of the West Coast. It's important because it's been tried a few times, but it is important that you need to try and build, if you like, the spots where you know that you have captured cargo or captive cargo.
Absolutely.
So that if you don't have the flows along all the chain, at least certain captive cargoes.
You are guaranteed
very
that.
Very good, can assure you. If you don't have that and you run the service, you would come to realize that you are not making ends meet, and consequently, you run a loss. And when you run at a loss, then you are likely to fold up. There are challenges with the payment of port dues and the rest. I know people have talked about concessions. I don't believe in concessions. I believe that if you have an efficient vessel and you are operating efficiently, you should come to the port, you should be able to load, you should be able to discharge within good time, cut down on your cost, crew appropriately.
Quick turnaround time.
Quick turnaround time, crew appropriately, do your marketing, get your cargo flows, and then move along. And once you have a good vessel, but if all the time, the vessels that have been put to this trade, they have not been very, very good vessels, I must say. And consequently, either they are bunker gasless, they're taking a lot of bunkers, you don't get the same, the crew on board, the challenges with the equipment on board. So to be able to do the feeder and do it well, somebody needs to bring a vessel that is good enough.
Right.
When I say good enough, you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
Not a rusty bucket, coming to run along the line. Good enough. And so at least efficiency will be there. And then I'm sure over time you'll be able to make some profit along the line, especially when we are talking about after. Because I'm saying that, look, you can't get after to work. How much cargo can you transport by road? We have no rail networks. So when you talk long distances, you only have to go by sea. And the infrastructure has not been built. It is not there. So when we talk about after and we talk about moving of goods, and we have to move them along distances, the best place to move volumes of cargo, long distances, is by sea. So you need to create that avenue for it. We have not created that avenue still.
All right, so if I happen to get some $5 million and I approach you, Doc, I have $5 million, bring $5 million, let's join hands and operate a good feeder vessel, let's work out the modalities and all that. Are you willing to join me?
Maybe you get $5 million, but I won't get. I will get. I'm a poor, humble lawyer.
Okay. So that was Dr. Emmanuel Kofi Mbia. Dr. Mbia is maritime consultant. He's also, a private legal practitioner of the Alliance Partners here in Accra. He's a former CEO of the Ghana Shippers Authority, joining us in studio tonight to discuss how to harness the potential of the blue economy for economic development in our country. We say a big thanks to you, Doc, for joining us, for obliging us, actually. We know that that's when we call on you, you always, oblige us. We are grateful to you, sir. And we also say big thanks to our sponsors, Ghana Revenue Authority, GWEL PLC, Serene Insurance, Ghana Link Network Services, Meridian Port Services, that's MPS. And we say the show is powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, GPHA. We entreat you to keep watching the rest of our programs, and remember to watch the abridged version of Iron Port on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. on Ghana Television. My name is Kennedy Mona. God willing, we shall bounce back next week with another wonderful edition of the show. Good evening and have a super week ahead.